All right, this is a reading from the Book of Truth, or the Voice of Osiris, chapters 9 through 11. Chapter 9. Then did El Daoud turn his attention to the process of evolution in Atlantis, and he divided the continent thus. He set apart the sacred heights, which were the habitation of El Daoud and the divine initiates. Then did he set apart for the evolution of the divine sparks the tablelands and the lowlands of Atlantis. I shall not go into detail here, O my children, for it little matters what happened during that prosperous time in Atlantis. At length the time when those people of Atlantis should be tested by Satanaku was soon to come about at the command of Saturn. Here, my children, it would be well to mention this fact that marriage was a thing never sanctioned, except the persons in question were accepted by El Daoud and were found to be in complete harmony and love with one another, and were not merely attracted as mortal sex man and woman. Also, reproduction was only to be carried on at the express command of Melchizedek, who was in command of the evolution of the Yahvic men of earth and at that time of Atlantis. Having made this clear unto you, my children, I will now set down briefly that which took place in that continent of Atlantis. The process of evolution and teaching unto the Yahvic man of earth went on uninterrupted for a long span of years, and the civilization which arose therefrom was the most marvelous that has ever graced the face of the world called earth. Only love and beauty together with complete harmony existed, and the evil ways of Satanaku seemed utterly forgotten. Also, the animal life was friendly and gentle one to another, and the pernicious and wicked act of killing animal life to nourish the mortal sex body was a thing unheard of. For those Yahvics who dwelt in Atlantis at that time were nourished by the vegetable life of that continent and by the fruit of the trees, which were all that could be desired. At length, the time of testing came, as had been spoken by the all-wise Father through the mediumship of Saturn, who was, as you will remember, my children, the divine one whose charge was left, Satanaku and all his rebels for purposes of testing. I will now take you to the astral regions of evil for a short time, that you may also see what was being planned by Satanaku. As regards repentance, it was not in his mind. In fact, his will to do evil was even greater than ever. For this reason, he collected around him all his rebels and divided them up into groups. Over each group he placed a leader, and each leader of each group had his special instructions, insomuch as one group would be detailed to foster the lust to kill and shed blood, another would foster sex passions, and so on. Thus the subtle brain of Satanaku was fully awake and was ever planning, so that he might have all ready at the official times of testing when they came to pass. One thing, O my beloved children, would I say unto you, none could be reached by Satanaku who did not willingly lend an ear unto his evil promptings, so that the free will of man was just as it had ever been. This was simply God's way of testing and finding out those who were really worthy to will that free will when that day should come and the final stage of perfection should be reached. At that day, all those who have not proved themselves worthy of the divine gift will be utterly obliterated from the divine plan of Godhead, body and soul. So shall those willing Adamics and Dumans again return unto their appointed houses from which they have voluntarily been absent for so long a period. I shall now return again unto Atlantis. The time for official testing had started, and many there were who had fallen by the wayside and had hearkened unto their own lustful natures, which had been brought into being through the subtle promptings of Satanaku. It was in the caves of the lowlands of Atlantis that Satanaku chose to hold his evil and horrible orgies. And to this end, he prompted the minds of the Yahvics who were foolish enough to be beguiled by his evil schemes and insinuations. Remember that Satanaku had his rebel band working in absolute harmony, and they obeyed him to the letter. I shall briefly point out one of his schemes unto you, my children. I must here tell you that even as the marriages betwixt the Yahvic men and women were sanctioned by the divine initiates and the sacred heights of Atlantis, so was the act of reproduction. Now, my children, must I make clear one more point unto you. Because of the evil which had to be fought, many of the Adamic race had volunteered in Atlantis to take upon themselves the mortal cross of shame, which was not the original Satanakuit body, but one which had been sanctified by the Godhead, and which was known as the sanctified mortal sex body. They having volunteered, together with my father and my mother, El Daoud Evam, to take on this body, it stands to reason that suitable vehicles must be found to bring these Adamics into the world, and so produce a house for them to live in. Also, they were to be born son-daughter, as when wearing the divine body of the Duman race, namely the coat of skin, the vehicles of my children were to be those evolving Yahavics, and they were to obey expressly the commands of Melchizedek, when he should command a birth to take place and a body to be got ready. Remember also, at that time, childbirth was absolutely free from pain with the sanctified sex body. So, my children, this was the method adopted for the incarnations of those Dumans into the mortal sex bodies, that they might help to carry out their promise to El Daoud when wearing the divine Duman body. As I have said, all was well for a season, but alas, the subtle brain of Satnako here saw a chance of stamping out those Dumans who were incarnating, and that by so doing, he would also stamp out the danger of the truth being taught to those Yahavics who dwelt on earth. His plan was as follows. He collected all those who had already fallen to his schemes, and with their help, he organized what was known as the initiations of Satnaku. At these rites, the bodies of animals were slain, and from them Satnaku and his rebels, by their art of black magic, materialized bodies in which for a space they could maintain themselves before their poor dupes who believed in them. At these orgies, O my children, he spoke in this manner: Behold, me Satnaku, your God. Do I ask sacrifices of you such as Adam doth, who doth lean unto the evil promptings of his female half? Do I bid you abstain from bodily enjoyment and sexual delights? Nay, I say unto you, take of them freely, for have not I, Satnaku, your God, given them unto you that you may eat and enjoy? Behold, Adam El Daoud, the tyrant, doth tyrannize over you in your choice of marriage, saying that you shall only marry the one of his choice. I say unto you, take whomsoever you desire, whether it be the desire for one or for many. For I, Satnaku, will hallow and sanctify your unions. One thing only do I ask of you, that is this: when those are born unto you who are son-daughters, you shall make of them an offering of sacrifice unto me, who am your God. This one little sacrifice do I ask of you. Deny it not to me, who am your benefactor, who will save you from the devastating tyranny of Adam and Eve, who is his female half, and who is responsible for all the suffering which has been meted out to you, my ever-beloved children of earth. For know that I it is who created your bodies of flesh and blood, that you might the better be able to indulge in the pleasures of earth. But know you also that it was Adam that caused your divine bodies of flesh and blood ultimately to perish, that you should be left drifting, even having in that day of sorrow no divine body with which to cover your wandering spirits. Thus spoke Satnaku, my children, and at this point I should tell you one thing, that Aranuwa, the spouse eternal of Satnaku, had refused to have anything to do with his evil ways, and had returned unto her own brothers and sisters of divine heaven. And as you already know, that the complete whole is that one that is born son, daughter, so you will see that Satnaku was only an incomplete half, and as such could not do the harm that otherwise he might have done, when the result would have been much more far-reaching if that were possible. So, my children, you will perceive how that the laws of marriage were upset, how that the births of affinities being born son-daughter could not proceed, and also how that the Adamics married with the Yahavics, and how that male spirits were housed in female mortal sex bodies and vice versa. This, O my children, will explain to you some of the sex depravities that are prevalent at your present time of earth incarnation. For supposing that two should meet, both wearing male mortal sex bodies, although the spirit of one was female, thus you will see the danger of the attraction that might arise out of such a meeting. Also, my children, I want you to realize how that the Duman Adamics and Yahavics races had by Satnaku's wiles and schemings become utterly mixed up, so that the distinction between the two races was lost, and all appeared as one, many of the Adamics forgetting the reason of their calling. Also, this was the period when childbirth became a danger and a burden unto the women of earth. Chapter 10. My beloved children, having made certain matters as clear unto you as it is possible, without omitting the most important points, and at the same time giving these points unto you as briefly as possible, I will now tell you some of the forms of parody of El Daoud's commands that Satnaku adopted. One of his most dreadful acts in this direction was inaugurated at his meetings of black magic in the caves of the lowlands of Atlantis, where he initiated the rites of Satnaku. I will touch lightly upon his most terrible blasphemy and parody. You should know, my children, that my father El Daoud was the founder of the Feast of Remembrance, which feast corresponded to your present Holy Communion, although you know not really that which you do. I will now set down clearly what happened, giving you my beloved father's command, which ran thus. Drink ye this pure juice of the orange, and take this life-giving bread, that ye may be revived in spirit, and cleave unto the ways of the Father, Mother God, in whose service am I come unto you. The orange tree, O my children, was my father's tree of divine Eden, even as you all have your representative tree in that divine place. Remember you not this saying? By their fruits shall ye know them. Now is the meaning made clear unto you, my children, that each member of the Adamic family and those evolving divine sparks all had their representative trees in divine Eden, and by them could they be recognized. Having told you this, I will return unto Satnaku and will show unto you exactly what he proposed to do concerning the Feast of Remembrance. My children, this was what he commanded at the rites of Satnaku, saying, Drink ye this blood, which is offered unto me for the redemption of the men of earth and those children of Adam who have been beguiled by his evil promptings. Also, eat ye of this flesh of the body which has been sacrificed in the same cause, that ye may be strengthened in body to worship me, your God and benefactor. Thus, O my beloved children, is the Holy Communion of the present day, for the most part, a parody on the divine commands of my beloved father Adam al-Daoud. The further machinations of Satnaku and his rebels were chiefly undertaken to produce chaos and uncertainty among the men of earth as to their true source of origin, and to cause them to seek all sorts of gods and prophets, not knowing in which direction to turn for the truth's sake. Having made clear these things unto you, my children, I shall set before you the statues which were given unto those Duman Adamics who had volunteered in Atlantis to take on the mortal cross of shame, that they might be the better be able to serve the Godhead and seek to stamp out the evil which had become so deeply rooted in the world called earth. These statues shall follow the 11th chapter of this my book unto you, and in them you will find corroboration of what I have already told you. For they are an exact copy of those original statues which have yet to be found and recognized through him who did set them down at the command of my father in Atlantis. Even as he has been able to retranslate the symbols and signs that once were known unto him, so shall he cause to be rediscovered the original writings which were hidden in the house of my father, which he did not command me, Osiris, his third son, to build in that land of Kemu. And I tell him who is even mentioned in my father's statutes as my word unto the nations, that the time is at hand when unforeseen circumstances and happenings will cause again those sacred writings and symbols to come to light. Chapter 11. My children, over whom I have been placed, that I may seek to turn your faces again unto the light of the Father, Mother God, I will now set before you the statues which were given unto those loyal Adamics who volunteered in Atlantis before the great flood, and did offer themselves unto the service of Godhead, that they might help in the plan of God for the salvation of those men of earth who had been created and awakened into conscious life at the word of Yahweh, when that particular Son of God, the Father Mother, was the viceroy of my father El Daoud, who in the land of Kemu, which is mentioned in my father's statutes, was known as Ptah, the father of Osiris, Isis, and the gods. My beloved children, these statutes were even written by him who was then chosen to be my father's word unto the nations of the world called earth, and they were set down according to the word of my father, who is Edom el Daud, or in the language of Kemu, Ptah, who was and is and shall be. And I would have you know, my children, that these statutes here, set down in this my book unto you, are a true replica of those original statutes which were hidden at the word of my father before that the flood of Atlantis had taken place. They were even conveyed unto that land of Kemu, and were concealed so that they might be rediscovered at the appointed time, and that these revelations should come in the great day of Aquarius, in which you are now incarnate. Remember this one thing, O my children, when you read them as if you were even now dwelling in Atlantis, as many of you did aforetime, and you would be the better able to understand them. They are set down exactly as they were given unto him, who is my father's word unto the nations, who is my mouthpiece, and through whom I give you this my book of truth, that you may know the truth of your origin, and that the line dividing the divine from the material may be blended, so that it may even be lost sight of by those who read and truly assimilate this my book unto you. My beloved children, remember, when reading these my father's statutes, that each symbolical form is an exact replica of those colored symbols which were given to my father's word unto the nations in Atlantis, and that each one numbered corresponds to the numbered writing facing it. Having told you this, I will leave you, my children, to accomplish the rest by giving them true patience and by striving within yourselves to understand their meanings. I repeat again that they are an exact copy of those statutes given to those Dumon Adamics of Atlantis, who at that time volunteered to take on the mortal cross of shame, thus giving up the divine body of the coat of skin, which body was theirs by descent, in order that they might the better be able to combat that evil wrought by Satnaku the rebel, and that they would be able to freely mix with those men of earth whom they had come to save. I would also tell you, my children, that the word in Kemu, which in after days represent in Satnaku, was that of Set, the god of evil. Another symbolized form also was the head of the vulture, which was placed on the body of a man. Having made these matters clear unto you, I shall now set down the statutes of the Father King to the Dumon Adamic race, and they shall open chapter 1 of the second part of this my book of truth unto you, my children. That is the end of part 1 of the book of truth, or the Voice of Osiris.